Favorite movie and why?
You know what? There's this movie called the Three Burials of Michelob. It's some Spanish name.
Okay.
But it had Tommy Lee Jones, I think, and Dwight Yoakam in it. This movie, and it takes place like on a border town in Texas. It's gritty. I can't recommend this movie. The Three Burials. If you just search the Three Burials of, it's going to come up.
Okay.
And Dwight Yoakam was a cop, but it is written so well that you don't hate anyone at the end of it.
Is it like a cops and robbers type thing? Good guys, bad guys?
Yeah, it's kind of a good guys, bad guys. It's
what's it called, Chris?
Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves.
Yeah, as Jeff just noticed, our intro music is as close as we could get to Guns N' Roses without getting a copyright infringement. So,
my first, I saw GNR in '86. I guess it would have been 11th grade. They were opening for Motley Crue on, I think it was Girls Tour in Florida.
I'm very jealous.
So I was front row. I mean, because this is really before GNR really blew up. Welcome to the Jungle was just getting started. And so I was front row. I already had the album, so I knew every song. So I'm singing, with him. And then Steven Adler looks down and he sees that. And then he gives me the thumbs up. And I was just like, yeah, Steven Adler got it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then we were just talking about Duff McKagan's autobiography. But reading that time period, that they were so broke, no money. And even having that opening slot, they're not paying anyone good,
right?
And so they're just. So I mean, I just know that had to be good fuel to see that kids are getting it.
I think what we should say then for this podcast is that you are the reason for Guns N' Roses' success. You
I think
has nothing to do with them. So, hey guys, this is my new friend, Jeff Mix. We actually met for about 10 minutes at an open house. I wanted to have him over and we'll dive into why, but he's a realtor. He's also a musician, also a neon artist of all things, which is unique. Hey, quick shout out here to Turn and Burn Engraving. For those of you not watching on YouTube, my buddy Doug owns this company and he sent me this awesome, handcrafted wooden cigar little I just great. It's like a cigar holder plus coaster plus amazing. So shout out to Doug. I love you, dude. I've known that guy since 10th grade wrestling, and he has this awesome company called Turn and Burn Engraving. But thank you, Doug. I appreciate you. Now on to Jeff. So Jeff's a realtor. I walked into his open house. I saw him giving his pitch and talking about the changes that just came down from the NAR settlement /lawsuit /change of buyer's commission. And one, I was kind of mesmerized by how you were pitching it. Two, as I mentioned before we got started, I think there's a lot of realtors whistling past the graveyard and they don't really know it yet. And three, you're doing the thing that I talked to a bunch of my buddies in April, May of 2024, when this settlement first started getting announced of it's only going to take one entrepreneurial listing agent, somebody who wants to be primarily a listing agent in the area, to catch on to this idea of buyers may or may not need representation. And that's going to set the new benchmark for kind of commissions and the standard and what have you. So why don't you give us a little Reader's Digest background on you, on real estate, how long you've been doing it. Obviously, you're still a working musician. You said you got an album coming out soon. So give us a life of Jeff in a few minutes.
Okay. I moved to Vegas in 1991. I was 19. No family out here, just came out here to learn the trade, to do neon. And spent a few years here, went back home to Florida where I grew up, got set up on a blind date with a coworker's sister. Turned out now she's my wife, so we're coming up on 29 years in October.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
What's the secret, man? 29 happy years.
You know what? I owe this to Leanne, is don't go to bed mad. So when we first got together, I thought we'd have a fight and then I would roll over and go to sleep. Well, that didn't work. She turned the lights on, pulled the sheets off, and kicked me out of bed. And then I was like, oh, there's another way to handle. Because if it was for me, I don't know if we would have lasted. But I owe it to her. But that's what we tell every time we go to a wedding. You got to do the registry or sign into the little book thing, and that's what we always say is don't go to bed mad. So
I love it. Kids?
Three grown men.
Oh my goodness. So you're done. You're on the back nine. You're golfing every day and playing music, or?
My youngest is going to be 26.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So we've got our first grandson, and now we got a granddaughter coming in February. So
congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Are they local? Or are they working in
They're
real
all here.
estate? Or are they
They're all
doing their own
here.
thing?
No, 2 of them are sign guys. So that would make them the 4th generation in the trade of building signs. And then my middle son runs the skate shop pharmacy.
Nice.
Downtown. So
we have stopped there. My kids are all into skating and RC cars right now.
Yeah.
So 2 trips this weekend back and forth to the RC car depot at Friendly Hobbies to get more parts. They don't tell you that the little $200 car, $300 car is fine. It's the $15 parts that you have to continuously replace that is the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
So how do you get into real estate from music, neon signs, more of a craftsman type trade? How do you find yourself in real estate?
So the issue with neon LEDs came along in the mid 2000s and really started to kill the trade then. And it's all been downhill from that point. In the olden days, like 90s, imagine a strip mall, the Albertsons letters, all those letters were filled with neon. It was all custom made. So that got replaced now with LEDs. And that was the bulk of our work, not so much the exposed stuff. So when that work went away, we were living in northern Indiana. We were doing a lot of the Target stores where I worked. And I saw my first Office Max letter come in with LEDs. And I told my wife, we move back. I can move to Vegas. That's the last place that we can live where I can make a living doing neon. And so we came back here in 2004. As I was telling you, my wife stayed home with the kids until my youngest started first grade full time. So she got her license. That was in 2006. And it looked like fun. And I was getting really burned out on neon at that point. And so I got my license in 2007. And the cool thing with neon was I was still doing it early in the morning from 4 to 10 in the morning. And then I would go to the office. But it became so mindless. I mean, I've done it from the time I was 19, so it's been mindless. So I just did that till I got a few deals going. And then after that, I didn't touch a stick of glass until 2019. My wife and I, you mentioned that we play music. We moved to Nashville. Up to that point, we had been full-time real estate. Was getting a little burned out on buyers, so I started doing some flips with a friend of mine. He was fronting the money. I did all the work. And when I say I did all the work, I mean did the work, which, looking back in hindsight, everyone was saying, you should have other people do it. But I loved the creative aspect of coming up with, a layout and building it and doing it, all that. And so I was getting burned out from that because I was working so much. And I just happened to look online and saw that they needed a glass bender, tube neon guy, in Nashville. So we've spent a lot of time in Nashville recording or, doing those things. And I said, well, why don't we just go check it out? At that point, my youngest was out of high school. So I said, the kids are growing. Why don't we go? People were fantastic. That was the first time I touched neon from 2007. So I hadn't touched it in well over a decade. And then coming back to it is like, oh, I do love this. And it was such a creative outlet that I had from the time that I was 19 that I didn't realize. So when I was getting burned out, I think the bigger picture was I wasn't being creative, which was screwing with my mind. And I told you I was drinking Heineken Zero. That was about the time that I said, well, you know what, I'm going to quit with alcohol. Not that I drink a lot, but every day I was putting a little depressant in my body. So I said, I'm going to get rid of that. So that was 8 years. But so we moved to Nashville in 19. About 6 months in is when COVID hit. So now we're in Music City. You can't play out. You can't tour. You can't do anything. So...
And I want to know how you talk your wife, who's established 3 kids, a thriving real estate business, home base in Vegas, to be like, hey, hon, let's just move overnight to Nashville so I can bend neon again, or bend glass, as you said, and play more music and do more stuff like that's creative. Hey there, Scott Groves with a quick interruption to the podcast. Sorry about that, but I just want to take a quick minute to announce our sponsors here for the podcast, and that sponsor is me, Scott Groves. It's actually the revenue that we generate through doing mortgages here at Neo Home Loans, and the money that we generate from the coaching program that I run, Consolidated Coaching for Loan Officers, coaching by loan officers for loan officers, that helps support this podcast. I really started this in 2021 as a passion project during
COVID, and we're excited to bring you a new episode every week. But this only happens if I'm making money in my real full-time job. So please, if you or somebody you know is looking to buy, sell, or refinance a house, our team is licensed in almost every state in the country. And if you know a loan officer who's looking for sales coaching, personal development coaching, lead generation coaching, please get in touch with us. Scott at the Scott Groves team. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to support our other endeavors, which is mortgage financing and loan officer coaching, which allows this podcast to exist. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
How did you get her to say yes?
Well, the cool thing is she's the bass player in our band. So
oh, that's convenient.
So I mean, she wasn't crazy about it. Our youngest moved with us, but our two oldest were here. So it wasn't an easy time. Of the 30 years we've been together, that 2 years was the hardest.
So you get into real estate right before 2007, 2008 crash. You decide to move to Nashville, which that whole town is built on going out right before you can't go out. Like next time you want to make a life move, contact me and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, it's all about timing. And then of course we're there and we do come back, but I wasn't active in real estate when we first got back in 21. And so that was when the easy money boom was going on. And I'm just letting it pass. And I did get licensed in 07. Of course, 08 comes and the market completely tanks. But I had started a website called LV Short Sales right in 08. So, and I was really ADHD on it. I mean, going crazy. Really, I got it first page of Google naturally. And so our short sale business was great. I mean, of course, we were selling the lowest. We did 2 short sales with one seller at the condo on East Sahara in Nellis, $24,900 a piece.
Oh
so
goodness.
It was like selling 2 Camrys. So,
oh my goodness.
And it took probably 3-4 months of negotiating for a $750 commission.
Oh my! They didn't have like a bank minimum where you at least get like $5,000 or something?
So it was no.
Oh my! For the young whippersnappers that are listening, can you explain what a short sale is and what that market looked like in 2008, 2009, especially here? Because I also owned a condo up here that we bought in 2004, 2005 for $300,000, $320, and about 24 months later, it was worth $65,000.
Yes.
So can you explain to people what that short sale market was, what it looked like, and all the shit work that it pertained to in the real estate business for you for those couple years?
So yeah, I would probably say it went from 08 till maybe 2013. You finally started seeing deals that weren't short sales. Like, oh, wait, a traditional sale, no bank involved? And then it was like, wow, this is great.
So easy.
Yeah, it's so easy. So the nice thing with where I came from is I missed the boom of 05, 06. Where it was easy money, and they always joke that an agent can go out in his pajamas and sell a house, and people camping out overnight for a KB home. It was nuts, I guess. And so with that boom, people were getting 80-20 mortgages, so 100% financing, no doc. So you could just say whatever, you get approved. So then as the market started to soften. Now slowly people started, wait a minute, so I owe more than what I can get. And then I remember we were both at Remax Associates, and we went to a little thing that the class they put on with somebody that was talking about short sales. This is going to be the future. And I remember looking at my wife going, okay. And there was another guy that was just an agent at that time, John Gafford, who's now the broker of Simply Vegas. Super sharp guy. So I noticed he's asking a lot of questions. And so it kind of fit. You kind of go, oh, this is the direction that we're going to need to go in. So fortunately, I started that site and it was good for us. I mean, it wasn't easy work because, like I said, the 80-20 loans, maybe there's 2 loans on the property. So you've got a first with Bank of America. You have a second with Green Tree, where it got really tough. If people don't understand how this would happen, what would happen, you could get approval on the first with Bank of America. And they say, okay, we're going to, so the house, they owe $300K. The house is now $150,000. They go, okay, we'll accept the $150K, and you need to close in 30 days. Meanwhile, Green Tree, on the other hand, we don't know where your file is. Can you refax it? Oh, we don't even have anyone assigned to your case. So now you're fighting to get Green Tree approved before the approval runs out on the Bank of America thing. And it was, sometimes, and then you lose the Bank of America, you get Green Tree approved. Now you got to go back through the process with Bank of America. I mean, it was just, and at the height of what we had, I think we had 50 short sales working. And
oh my God.
And, my wife was negotiating them. For the most part, I would do some of them, but it was a nice setup. I would go out and meet with the sellers. Leanne didn't want to go because it was always heartbreaking. Everyone's so sad about what is happening. So, I mean, it was completely emotional, so stressful to get these deals done. So it was a tough way to make a living. Plus, the median home in 2012 was $120,000. And then as the market did start to turn, now you've got, 20, 40 offers on these houses. You got cash buyers. Leanne and I would teach this first-time home buyers thing at NHSSM, which is a nonprofit out in North Las Vegas. So I had all of these down payment assistance buyers trying to get a $120,000 house, getting always beat out. So I would say on average, I would tell them that you need to plan on losing out on 10 to 20 properties before you get one. But fast forward now, the people that we did get a house for $100,000, now they're sitting with a house that's worth 400.
Yeah.
So it's amazing for them.
So, you mentioned the emotion of dealing with those short sale individuals. I think depending on where you fall, whether it be politically or socioeconomically or whatever, there's these two visions of people that short sold. There was the evil, greedy investor who was buying a bunch of homes on speculation in Arizona, Nevada, booming kind of like Sunbelt state type states in the Southeast. And they were just greedy pigs who were picking up 5 or 6 properties with 100% financing. And they were basically just gambling with the house's money because there was no down payment. I think there's like that perception that like, oh, all the short sales were those kind of people. And then there's this other perception of like, oh, every single short sale in America was some poor family that got connived by the bank into doing 100% option arm that they should have never been in. And we just trashed this whole generation of first-time buyers. Where was the reality? Because I'm guessing it was somewhere in the middle.
I would say it was somewhere in the middle. I think if I think back on the listings, I would say it's more, I didn't deal with the investors guys because I feel like the people that just gambled, they weren't short selling. They just screw it.
Just walked away.
Just walked away. Mm-hmm. It was the good people that said, well, I want to do the right thing. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So the gamblers just let it go to foreclosure. Yes. Like, forget it. My credit will be fine in 7 years. Go ahead. Take it if you want, bank. I remember this one guy, you mentioned the file getting lost between B of A and Greenpoint and whatnot. I remember a guy in LA who I was working with, did the first 22 years of loans in LA, and now we're back and forth between LA and Vegas. And he started the short sale, tried to do the right thing, and they screwed him around for so long. And this whole time he's like, hey man, I'll do cash for keys, or I'll just walk away and you can take it peacefully. Just take it off, take my name off the deed and the property and the title. He tried for months to try to do it right. Finally, one day he just gave up because he had a first and a second mortgage. And he ended up keeping that property, even though they got foreclosure notices all the time. He kept that property for 2 years and didn't pay a penny to the bank. It was a condo, to the HOA or property taxes by the time the first and second mortgage ended up figuring their stuff out. And instead of working with him in 2009, 2010, he got to live in the house for free. Beautiful condo in Marina Del Rey. At the time it was probably worth $700,000. Now it's worth probably $2 million.
Wow.
He just got to live there. Excuse me. He just got to live there for free for 2 years because the banks couldn't get their shit together. It was so crazy. And he wasn't even trying to work the system. They were just that bad at coordinating.
We had lots of people that, 2 years is nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I can probably think of people that 6, 7 years.
It took them to get their house foreclosed on or short sale?
Yeah.
Did you work with them for that long?
I think the longest maybe would have been 18 months to 2 years to get a file finally through.
Oh my God.
But I mean, 2 years was nothing.
All right. So did you at least profit from the run up from, say, 2012, 13 till you went to Nashville in 2019? Were those the booming times when there was just a ton of offers, properties were selling as quickly as you could get them on the market?
I would say 13 to 14 was really busy. I would say by the time we got into 17, 18, a little softer.
And what does it look like today?
I mean, if we break it down microly, over the last month or two, I feel like it's softened compared to, say, 22. I sold a house in 22 in June, and I feel like we just caught the cusp before rates starting to creep up, and I felt like that was the end of the COVID boom.
Yeah, end of the easy money.
Yeah.
And was that one of those situations where you had 10, 15 offers and everybody wanted a house because they could get a 3% mortgage?
Definitely, I would say, you get in that five offer range. But even as just a few months ago, I had a listing out off near Sam Boyd Stadium. I don't know if they're calling it that anymore.
I don't know, the UNLV Stadium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we ended up over 1 weekend, we had 4 offers. So, I mean, that was a lower price one, under 400. And I've got one that's sitting on the market for 2 weeks now. We're going into the 3rd week with no offers, but somebody showed today, I'm hoping. And then, of course, the big hope is next Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, I mean, you're the loan guy, but from what I hear, everyone hopes that it could be a 0.5 point drop. And I know that I've got an app where it seems like the rates, the FHA was like 5.675 on Friday. So I'm hoping once it's in that low fives, it's going to be the point where the people who have been on the fence go, okay, 5 is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if we can get to a place where anything with a 5 in front of it, it's not even necessarily that like the difference between 6.5 and 5.75 is going to be the difference between whether somebody should or should not be a homeowner. In the price points out here, it's money, but it's usually not enough to like sway, would you get approved or not? I think it's just a consumer confidence thing, because we'll see a situation where rates dip from like 7 1/8 to 6.99, but that barrier and just a little bit of like positive influx of information and stories from the media, it's like it boosts consumer confidence. Okay, cool. Rates are coming down. Now I can buy a house. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I think a lot of the interest rate that's going to come up here, we're filming this in September of 2024. I think the interest rate that's coming up, the interest rate cut that is pretty much 100% going to happen the next time the Federal Reserve meets, I think that's already kind of baked into the cake on where rates are today. I think what'll be more interesting is if Jerome Powell signals that like they were a little bit behind the curve and they're going to continue to drop rates in November or January, then I think the market will react positively and drop rates, overnight a bit. But we'll see, because all of this stuff was supposed to happen May 11th of a year ago. Rates were supposed to go down because of the inflation data, and it just never seemed to get there. So it'll be a very interesting 6 months. And then, of course, the more tumultuous things get with the election or geopolitical issues or whatnot, that tends to positively affect rates and bring them down. So it'll be interesting to say the least.
In my SpongeBob optimistic hope is we're in the low 5s as we roll into 2025. Because the big spike in closing is in March, which means people are out looking in January. So I feel like if that rate is good, decent, I think it's going to be. I'm super excited and optimistic. I'm feeling like I did when I thought we better make a short sale site with the new changes to the commissions. So I'm kind of feeling that. I'm feeling like it's a perfect storm of all of these things. With if the rates come down, we're getting more inventory. It's gonna make sellers be a little more happy to give some concessions to get the house sold. So if we have all of these things factoring in, Christmas is done, election's done, it's a new year. Anyhow, I'm excited.
Yeah. So you mentioned the commission lawsuit, which was the Sitzer Burnett versus NAR. Can you tell us in layman terms what was the lawsuit, and then what has the ruling meant for your realtors on the ground?
Okay, so what the class action lawsuit ruled was that brokers offering a blanket offer of compensation on the MLS to buyer's agents was anti-competitive. So what that means is the traditional model, we just use 6% for easy math. So if it was 6%, 3% for the listing agent, 3% for the buyer's agent. So traditionally, a seller says, I want to sell. The agent comes over, you do the listing agreement. The listing agent says, I'm going to take 3% for our side. We'll offer 3% to a buyer's agent if that agent brings a buyer to your home. So once the agent, they get back to the office, they input everything into the MLS, the pictures, the remarks, everything, along with the buyer's agent commission that the seller said that they would give another agent if that agent brought a buyer. So what the settlement was saying is by them ahead of time saying, we're going to pay 3%, it's not giving the seller the opportunity to negotiate that commission with the deal. And you know what? I agree.
Yeah.
Because when you first heard about this, it's like, what do you mean? Yeah, oh my! Because I've always worked with buyers, so it's like, it took me a long time to wrap my head around how is this going to work. And for so long, we knew that the settlement was done in March, but then we had 4 months of what the hell are they going to do now? How's this going to work? And so I'm trying to work through all these different scenarios because, your first thought is because everyone's screaming that the sky is falling and it's over. And it's like, well, shit, what are we going to do? Because, I am a musician, but you can't make money off of music unless you're huge.
Right.
I mean, Spotify streaming, that's a whole other podcast. So I've got music I can't make money off of. Now I'm selling real estate. Now we're worried about the commissions. And then I've got the whole neon thing. And it's like all three of my things are, what the hell am I going to do? So, I mean, I was a mess for a while trying to figure out how this is going to work. But I said to Leanne, I said, so imagine we live East Coast and our son Zach wants to sell his house. This is fantastic because he can say, this agent comes and says, I want 3%. He can say, no, you know what? Let's do 2%. Let's do 2.5%. Regardless, it's going to save that seller money. So then that's when I started going, okay, this is great for a seller. So the way we're working our model right now, we'll take a listing at 2%. We'll do multiple open houses. We'll sit there. If we can get a buyer for the seller through the open houses, we'll represent them for a $2,500 flat fee. So, like I said, I've worked so many buyers, and when we first started at Remax, I was part of a team, and we had a relationship with a guy that was front page for Las Vegas real estate search term. I mean, within the top 3. So the leads came in like crazy. So I was always able to work buyers, and I love working buyers. And so it's like, what are we going to do? And now I lost my train of thought where I was going with this. So, so the bulk of the work with a buyer is getting them in the car, going to look at, a dozen houses.
Yeah, lead acquisition, right?
Yeah, so you're out there, you're driving around, you're looking at houses, and, chances are you're not going to find something that first week. I would say on average, it's going to take 4 weeks of something before you really get somebody. And then you got to hope that you get them in contract. But if I sat at an open house and a buyer walks in, I don't have to do anything except write up the offer, and I can make this great for my seller. It's a no-brainer. And if I can do that for a seller, they're going to tell their friend, hey, this agent, they're working their ass off. They've got these different open houses, weird times, to accommodate people with different schedules. I feel like it's a win. So I mean, I think it'd be great if you know, and when the market tanked, I don't remember what the number was of agents, but when the market switched to short sales, all these agents dropped out.
Right.
So I'm kind of hoping that the lazy agents are going to drop out.
So there's a whole cottage industry, because I know some of them, of real estate coaches. And I mean, if we put this podcast on a real estate forum, you're just going to get lambasted of like, oh, you're a sellout. You don't know what you're worth. How can you work with somebody for $2,500? You know, we've got to hold the line at 3% for the buyer and 3% for the listing agent. And what would you say to those people that say, well, you can't sell a house for 2%. It's just a race to the bottom. And like, how would we ever be professionals if we're cutting our commissions? Like that's the whole real estate coaching industry would say things like this. Now, I tend to agree with you that the market is going to produce what the market's going to produce. And if your opinion is like, hey, I don't need to charge 3% to a buyer because I didn't need to spend money on lead acquisition. I didn't need to spend, months driving them around trying to get them under contract. This is me just helping them and having a fiduciary responsibility to negotiate the contract and get them an honest inspector. Like, I tend to agree with you, but there's a lot of people that would hate you for this.
Yeah. And, and I tell Leanne, I go, I think we're going to piss off a lot of people. But I don't care. Like I said, when we sold a $25,000 short sale after 3 months of work, 4 months, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 3 or 4 months for a short sale for a $750. And most people wouldn't have taken that listing, and, maybe we shouldn't have. But, I mean, we do care about our clients. So, and even at that point, when the market in 2012, 2014, the median price was $120,000. 3% commission on $120,000 was $3,600. Everyone was happy getting 3% on a $120,000 house then. And fast forward to now, the median price is, $480 and change, almost $500,000. 2% of $500,000 is $10,000. You do 2 of those a month. I mean, that's $250,000 in gross commissions. If that's not good enough for you, I don't know. Maybe you're watching too many episodes of $1 Million Listing, but I would be happy making $250,000 a year.
It's funny because in LA, where again, I've spent most of my career and most of my referral partners still live in LA. It's like, yeah, there was a lot of people that were super happy because they were on the buy side of those short sale deals where the bank was offering maybe 1.5, 2 on a $400,000 property. So they were stoked after their broker cut to make $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 a deal. And now they're like, well, what do you mean I can't make $30,000 on $1 million purchase? And it's like, I get it. Finding $1 million buyer is harder. Keeping them engaged harder. Getting them qualified harder. Showing them houses harder. Getting the contract accepted very difficult because still a lot of competition in LA. But $30,000 for a buyer's agent, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money out of the seller's pocket. And I think what part of the lawsuit was arguing was that because all this happened behind the scenes and all of this happened in a manner which wasn't completely transparent to everybody, it did cause price inflation. And I don't really think anybody can argue with that.
Yeah, I can't argue with the lawsuit. I mean, I know those attorneys made a ton of money. Jeez. I mean, 1.6 billion.
Yeah. Probably kept a fourth of it.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, it's nuts. But I feel like this is good for the seller, and maybe the days of making the $30,000 commission, maybe $20,000 is really enough. I mean, but again, I love people. I love doing this, and it's not all about the money. And I'm not driving crazy cars, and I'm not living in a crazy house, so I don't need crazy money. I mean, I would love, $500,000 a year. I mean, who wouldn't? But we're not doctors. We haven't gone to school for 8 years. I don't know. I'm just real.
Yeah. How are you talking with the seller who maybe looks at it the other way and they're like, oh, you're only charging 2%. Like, what's wrong with you? What service are you not offering? What are you not doing that the professional agent who charges 3% or 3.5%? Like I know that's very common in coaching practices pre the lawsuit of like, oh, you charge 6% and the listing agent keeps 3.5% and the buyer's agent keeps 2.5% because Mr. and Mrs. Listing Agent, you had to pay for maybe staging or photography or spend more time at the house. How are you having that conversation with sellers about, how Jeff can provide top-notch service at a lower cost?
I mean, I feel like 2% isn't the low one because you can drive around town and see the 1% listing broker.
Yeah.
And I've done that in the past for clients that are going to buy, cut them a deal on the listing side, use me to buy. So, and we never have cut what we provide. And I am working, maybe I do have an issue with being humble or not giving myself enough worth. But I feel 2% would be great. The 1%, I feel like some of the 1% people, you feel like they're barely even going to, they're going to do the crappy iPhone pictures like you were talking about with your house.
Yeah. I want more 1% agents because I got a great deal on my house for the listing agent taking about 5 iPhone photos that were horrible and nobody came to see the house except for me.
Yeah. It is a little stressful because, people do see the billboards. They know there is the 1%, but it comes down to, I'm not going to work for 1%. And what I did is with this lawsuit, I just had to think, what is fair? And I feel 2% is fair, especially with where home prices are now. 2% on a $100,000 house, that was a lot of work for $2,000.
Right.
But when you've got $500,000 and $700,000 houses, that's a good amount of money.
I like it. Where are you spending your marketing dollars, right? Because like you said, going out there and advertising the 2%, I think it's a great talk track and it is in fact, saving your sellers money. But to advertise that is like, well, if he's advertising 2, why wouldn't I just go with the person with 1? So where are you finding your sellers? Where are you doing your lead generation? Because I looked you up, your numbers are pretty great. But where are you finding the clientele and where are you sourcing business right now? What's the secret sauce for Jeff finding listings?
We are doing Facebook, ads, Instagram thing.
Do you run those yourself?
I do.
Because I feel like that space is filled with snake oil salesmen, and I have gone down that rabbit hole of spending money for leads before on Facebook, and it just never pans out for me. So how are you doing that? How are you targeting people, or like what are you doing well?
Well, it's never great. And if we look at our business, most of it is from referrals from past clients. So that's really where we're trying to focus, where we are advertising, and we do postcard mail outs just to our sphere. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of a soft nudge, like, hey, you know what? We're closing sales. We're out here working. That's everyone always preaches the sphere, but that really is, at least when we going through closed sales, that's been the bulk of our business.
Nice. And talk about your open house strategy, because when I walked into your open house, it felt different. It looked different. Like I could tell that you were a pro.
I told Leanne, I said, I'm going to get a TV for these open houses. She says, what? And then I said, so I got a 40-inch TV. I set it up. I go, it's too small. I go, this looks stupid. So that she goes, what are you talking about? So I go back, I take it back, I go and I get a 55-inch TV. But the good thing with the 55-inch TV is I keep it in the box that it came in. So I drag it in. And if it was 60, I couldn't carry it by myself. But 55, I could spread my arms out enough to carry it in. And so what we try to do is get into an open house that we can work Thursday through Sunday. So I'm only setting up one day. So I'm there Thursday. And then I have my Mac and screencast, and I have a Canva slideshow, and I just put the skinny on the house onto the screen, and I'm just trying to do something different than just some agent that's just sitting there and here's my flyer. I want to give them. I'm trying to wow them.
Well, it worked because I go to a lot of open houses. I go to like between 5 and 10 every weekend for 15 years. It's how I've met most of the realtors that I work with. I just spilled all over myself like a child, trying to drink out of the corner of the mic. And And when I walked into yours, I was like, oh, he's got a whole presentation. You were able to, on the spot, some neighbors came by and it was a pretty slow open house that afternoon. I was coming in at the very end of the day. You were able to go through a slideshow with them of like a potential listing presentation. I was like, oh, this dude's a pro, man. Like you had good signage. I actually knew where the open house was. I can't tell you the number of open houses I walk up to and I'm like, is this the house? I don't even know. They don't have a sign outside. And then I walk in, you got this big TV display with all of your like, with the flyer material, and you're able to go straight into the presentation. I'm like, this guy's badass. So tell Leanne the TV works.
Yeah. Well, you know what else? I got these cool red chairs that maybe you don't know who this Lonnie Mammogram. I can't remember. I always forget his last name, but he's got this crazy house on Sand Hill. He's since passed, but he was a brain surgeon and he was collecting all this junk. Well, anyhow, somebody bought his house and they've been selling stuff. So I bought these chairs for $10 a piece off of Marketplace. Again, I tell Leanne, I said, I'm going to go buy some chairs for the open house. She says, you're getting chairs? I said, well, a couch would be too bulky to haul.
Yeah.
I can't get a couch. So I get these chairs. They were kind of dirty, so I take them to the car wash. I blast them all clean. Put them in there. I think that same day or the day after that you were there, a gentleman came in. He saw the signs and he goes, how much? I said, it's $695. He goes, oh, never mind. He goes, I need like a rental. I said, okay. I go, well, have a seat. So he sits down. I go, what do you want to spend a month? So because I'm pulling up the residential rental search. He says, 400-ish, I said, 400 a month for a rental? He goes, no, 400,000. I go, oh, you want to buy a house that you can rent out. But anyhow, the long story short, he sat in that chair. And I think if I didn't have the chairs, it might have ended and he would have bolted.
Yeah.
So my little $10 chairs, we went into contract on a new build last week. So
yeah, you have set up a little mini environment at the house, like your office within the house with your TV, your computer, your chairs, where it is very inviting for people to sit down and just like get some information, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we didn't have a long conversation when we were there. I'm like, oh, I don't want to bug this poor guy with an annoying lender who's coming to talk to him. I want to be able to go through his sales pitch with the neighbor who wanted to list their house, which, by the way, did they follow up with you or did you follow up with them?
No, I haven't heard. I never heard from them. But,
okay.
And this has been a work in progress with these changes because, that was the beginning of August. So, in fact, in that house, I kept trying to shoot these videos as I'm trying to work through how are you going to, in 60 seconds, explain the difference of what has happened in the market. So anyhow, I've it's great to have the TV because I can have the MLS pulled up and, this is what else is available. Here's some more open houses and a 3-mile radius. And I'm just trying to give something of value, be ahead of the curve.
I love it.
Not ask them.
Yeah.
Give something.
What is your follow-up strategy? Because, there's this comedian that's done this whole set on like realtors. He's like, dude, you don't have any friends who are realtors. They never show up for anything. They never call you back, but I guarantee you text them and say, hey, my mom passed. I think I might need to sell her house. He's like, the words will still be floating in the cloud from your phone to their phone, and they will be knocking on your front door with a listing presentation. And it's so true. And it was so funny. And I was like, oh, I wonder what realtors who are actual pros, like what is the follow-up cadence where you don't feel like you're being pushy, you don't feel like you're being annoying, but you're doing the job of being a professional and following up. What does that look like for you if you meet a client who gives you their contact information and they say, hey, I think we might want to list our house? Is it like daily until they tell you to piss off? Do you follow up once a week? Do you send them just your postcard? Like, what does that look like for you as a pro?
I've always been laid back, and that's kind of been,
I would have never guessed.
What's funny is I feel like they always say that I'm laid back, but I feel like in my head I'm going nuts and I'm, a mess. But people do say, oh, you're no pressure. And I'm never been high pressure on any of it because I always had a habit where Leanne would say, they found the house, stop showing them stuff. But they would say, oh, I really like this house, I want to write. And I'd say, okay, cool. I go, but you know what, we've got 2 more to look at. Let's just go look at them just in case.
Right.
You know, and then, but I think most agents would be like, what the hell, you just get back to the office. But I want to, I've always felt like I want to make sure that they've looked at everything, that, you know, that they can make a confident choice. But today I just had a call this morning. The guy gets on the phone, goes, hey, Jeff, I don't know if you remember me. This is Scott. And I go, of course I remember you, Scott. You know, I said the last time I saw you, you were working at the airport. But he wants to sell. But I sold him his house in 2009. He just called me out of the blue.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, it made my day. I mean, because I said,
15 years later, most people can't remember their father-in-law's name, much less their realtor.
I know.
So how often do you think you dripped on this guy, whether it's email, postcard? Did you call him? Do you have an annual client appreciation event? How the hell did this guy remember you from 15 years later?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure if I have them on the postcard that I've been mailing out, but you know, there's that saying that people won't remember what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So that's what I hope. So,
how do you think you made that guy feel in 2009? What was so unique about it?
You know, I did. That was the time when there were 30,000 houses on the market.
Yeah.
So I mean,
for context, in all of Clark County today, there's maybe 5,000 houses?
There's about 5,000 active right now.
Yeah, and 15 years ago, there was 30,000.
Yes. So I remember one day I showed 40 homes to one client.
In a day?
In a day. It was stupid for me to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad we've learned since 2009.
Yeah. But honestly, and I'm not exaggerating, we looked at 40 homes and they did buy. But but back then there were so many houses and they were coming in from New York. So of course let's look. They don't know anything about the Valley. So I say, well, you need to know. I don't want to sell them in Green Valley and then 3 months living here go, why didn't you show me Summerlin?
Yep.
Or I didn't know I could get so much house in Aliante. Why didn't you? So I would pull up every corner of the Valley. So there wasn't an out-of-state buyer that did not see everything. At least I had to sleep good at night knowing that I showed him a shit ton of houses.
So what feeling do you think you left with that guy? Just that he knew you cared, or?
I don't know. I mean, it's awesome. You know, he bought in 2009, and then in 2013, Leanne got me a trip to Nashville with for this songwriter workshop thing over for a week. And I was going through the airport security, and then I get up to give my card, and it's Scott. I go, Scott. And then he's like, Jeff, and I say, hey. And then meanwhile, as he's looking at my ID, here comes this crew cutting everybody. I'm like, what the hell? Why are these people getting to go ahead of everyone? And then I look and it's Snoop Dogg. So yeah, the last time I saw Scott was
2015.
Yeah.
Man.
13. But still, 12. I mean, even that's another 11 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 9 years that you haven't talked to him.
Yeah.
That's wild, man.
Yeah. So
and do you find that happens a fair amount where you just hear from past clients out of the blue who are ready to sell or have a family member that wants to buy, or et cetera, et cetera?
I just sold 1, 2, 3 houses it was a son, an uncle, and a father from another client that did 3 deals with me, sent me these 3 people over the last 6 months.
I mean, we're an hour into the podcast, and I think the audience might be upset that the secret sauce to success is just care.
Don't be a dick. That is the biggest rule in life.
Rule 1, don't be a dick. Rule 2, don't be a dick.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So I got to ask, because you have a lot of insight to this, having started in 2007. And of course, the question you and I get asked all the time is like, oh, is there a correction? Is a bubble? Am I going to be able to get a property $100,000 cheaper in a year? And my answer is always, this is not 2007. We don't have a bunch of people that got, 100% financing. Buyers had real skin in the game for the last 15 years. They were properly underwritten. They had to have reserves. They had to have a down payment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's still this hope from a lot of consumers that haven't yet bought of like, they want that justification of like, oh, I've been renting for 10 years, just waiting for the market to crash and it just keeps getting more and more expensive. What do you think is going to happen, and how are you discussing that with clients, right? Because rates are higher, property values are more expensive, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy right now.
I don't know. I don't remember the statistic nationally, but it seems like is it 60% of loans have a rate under 4%?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. So there's all these people with a killer rate. Most of them with the killer rate bought in 2020. 2021, and it's still gone up. Now they've got the equity. They weren't crap loans when they bought.
Right. So, or they bought in 2015 and just refinanced in 2020. They're never moving.
Yes. Yeah. Like we got our oldest son into a house in 18 with Home is Possible. And then he was able to refi. He's got like a 2% something. I mean, I would say that I tell people, I feel that's a once in a lifetime. That's never coming back.
Never coming back. I agree with you.
And I wish the market would tank, because it would be killer to be able to buy another $200,000 house.
Right.
But I don't see that happening. I don't even see it going down.
Yeah.
I mean, unless a 9/11 happens, who knows? I mean, but even if you did buy long term, 20 years, it's all ebb and flow. You're still going to end up with equity in 20 years, 30 years. And you need a place to live. So regardless,
Yeah. I'm doing a refinance right now for a client who inherited a house. And I looked up the stats on the house because the house has been in the family for almost 41 years. They bought in middle of 1984. So 40 years. Middle of 1984, they bought the house in La Cañada, California for $210,000. It's now worth about $1.4 million. And I was 5 years old in 1984, so I don't remember the politics and the interest rates. So I looked it up and I was like, okay, what are all the reasons the naysayers, the negative media, the pundits would have said not to buy a house in 1984? Well, rates were 13.875, and the Lebanon Marine, or the Marine barracks in Lebanon had just got bombed, and it looks like we were going to go to war with the Middle East, and gas prices were soaring again, and there was all these geopolitical things, and we were in the middle of a political election or a presidential election, and so forth and so forth and so forth and so forth. And then I looked up the math, and it's like this property has gone up over 1.1 million in value over 40 years. It's generated a ton of rental income for the family. There's been tax write-offs. And I'm like, this was like a $2 million swing in the generational net worth of the family because somebody ignored the noise in 1984 and is like, well, I got to have a place to live. Might as well buy this place. And it's like, these are the things that like change the trajectory of family finances. And I'm trying to have these conversations with clients right now, and they're like, "Wow, it's 6.5. I could have got 2.5 4 years ago." And it's like, well, yeah, I could have bought Apple the day it IPO'd also, but like some things doesn't happen, right? Like I really wanted to date Heather Locklear in high school, but it wasn't in the cards.
Yeah, you're not Tommy Lee.
Yeah, exactly. So. So what's the conversation you're having with buyers right now, other than like you just said that you got to have the place to live? I
know it sounds like a real estate agent when they say, well, the best time to buy was yesterday. The second best time to buy is today. So again, I'm just feeling good with the way the rates are coming. I did build this cool spreadsheet that shows the difference between if you were to buy now or wait a year for the rate to come down. And the math, no matter how you do it, it's always better to buy now, even if the rate is a point higher. Because what's a point on $500,000? Like $240?
Yeah, depending on the price point, obviously, but it's nominal. It's nominal. And I have the benefit of looking at people's bank statements, which can sometimes be scary. And I'm like, hey man, you're telling me that you don't want to buy a house because, the price is $300 out of your budget and you wish interest rates were lower. can we have an honest conversation? To which the client almost always says yes. I'm like, I have your bank statements and I'm seeing $900 a month in spending at 7-Eleven, Starbucks, OnlyFans, Jardine Cannabis Shop. Like I'm making no personal judgment about your life. I don't care. I've got my addictions too. I light $25 on fire every single night with a cigar. I'm like, so this is not me judging you, but this is just a prioritization. Like, do we maybe want to cancel the OnlyFans and like smoke a little bit less weed to be able to get into a house? Cause like you're really concerned about $300, but here's your $900 a month, coffee budget. Like start brewing at home. And 90% of the time that conversation goes really, really well. 10% of the time I lose the client forever and they're never going to call me back. But it's really just a prioritization thing, right? Because everybody needs a place to live.
Yeah.
I want to talk quickly because I think it's more interesting. Tell me about your music career. What do you play? What genre? What got you into music?
I started playing drums when I was maybe 10. I had always been.
I feel bad for your parents.
Well, my dad was a drummer.
Okay, not as bad.
So, and my brother plays guitar. So him and I were always a band together. And but then I picked up guitar. Not that I'm a great guitar player. I'm more of a songwriter. Tom Petty. I get a lot of Tom Petty. Before I had an electric guitar, people would say, "Oh, you're Dylan-ish," And now when I got a band, it became, "Oh, you're like Tom Petty." So started that that was a turning point for me when I went to Nashville in 2013 for that songwriter thing, because I came out of there going, "Oh, I guess no." I am an artist. I am a songwriter. So I really went all in, really concentrated on writing. Oh, you know what? Okay, so this is a cool story. So now it was 2013, 2014. I get a call. I'm all the way out Centennial Hills area, and this guy goes, "Hey, I got your number from the concierge at Mandalay Bay." He goes, "I'm in town. I wanted to look at a house. The agent that I was working with before has moved to Atlanta, and I would like to go look at it." And I said, "Well, where is it?" He says, "It's in Southern Highlands." I go, "Okay." I said, "I can get back to the office and pull it up and see if I can find it." I said, "How many square feet was it?" He said, 8,000 square feet. I go, "Where are you now?" He said, "Mandalay Bay." I said, "How about I pick you up and we'll go to the office?" So, so I pick him up at valet at Mandalay Bay. He gets in the truck. He's got a folder with him. He's like, I've got a house closing, and it might have been California. So he had a estimated HUD, and then he's like, I was a pro baseball player, but I played mostly overseas. I said, "Oh, that's cool," and he had some clippings of that. So we go back to the office. I find a property. We go out and look. So he wants this one house, but he tells me that his agent who he's working with, who moved back to Atlanta, had a buyer's agreement, but she agreed to settle and have me buy her out for $1,000. But his attorney said, "I worked it down to 500, and we'll just split it between the attorney and me." So he wanted like $287. So I said, I don't know about that. So I take him back to Mandalay Bay, and he wants to go look again the next day. And so I was supposed to meet him because he was going to ride on this property in McDonald Highlands, but something wasn't sitting with me. So he told me his name was Sidney James. And so I'm in the Hooters parking lot on my iPad. Leanne's at the office on her computer. And then she goes, "Is his name Sidney James Brass?" I go, "Well, hold on." She goes, "Google that." So I Google it, and here comes not Sidney James, but Sidney James Brass mugshot. So it turns out he's on the run from Maricopa County. And I'm not sure what his end game was, but the whole thing was he was scamming me. Not, it was nuts. So that night I was going to the songwriter thing, and one of the guys there was also a real estate agent. He's like, "Man," he goes, "you should write a song about that." I go, and because now I'm imagining him at the Hooters Hotel, and I was like, well, it should be more like a dive hotel. So anyhow, this Sydney guy inspired me to write this whole album about a dive motel of different characters staying in a different room of the motel. Well, then those songs morphed into us. I made an hour-long indie film that went along with the album. So this chance thing with Sydney really changed the whole trajectory of what I was doing musically. So yeah, okay. You want me to keep going with it?
Yeah, I love this.
Okay.
I love this kind of stuff.
Meanwhile,
like, it just shows that, like, every person I've ever interviewed is so much more. It's like, oh, I'm a realtor, you know, but it's like, no, you're also like a songwriter and a movie maker. And it's like, this is the interesting stuff about human beings, right?
So this is 2013. This is when there was a glut of HUD homes, which HUD homes allowed you to go in, take pictures, advertise it as your own. There were so many. So I had a camera. I would go out, I would shoot 10 HUD homes in one day. So I was hiring people off of Upwork, which back then was called Odesk.
Yep.
And I had a girl in the Philippines doing Craigslist ads. I had somebody doing SEO. And I had a girl in South Africa writing blogs for me. I'm still friends with many of these people that I was working with.
Does not surprise me.
So I hired this kid from Pakistan to edit these videos. So I would just upload the files and I hire him, and his name's Zohaib. He lives in Karachi, which is, it's like I think the population is 8 million. It's bigger than New York City, this population in Karachi. But he goes, can I just call you on Skype? And I'm like, because I was dealing with this other dude in Bangladesh and his English was not great and it was super hard to understand. So I Skype with Zohaib, and Zohaib goes, yo, what's up? And I go, are you shitting me? I go, I sound like I'm talking to a California kid. He goes, so he tells me, well, his parents always had him watch American TV so he could speak good English. But he was a film student, so I'm having him edit all these videos. So, months go by. Him and I love him. I love this guy. He had this crazy big bushy hair and just like this bundle of happiness. So anyhow, his film school wanted to send him to Vegas because at the convention in April, there's this big film convention with cameras and stuff. And he was such a good student and so good that they wanted to send him. So he goes, I'm coming to Vegas, for this thing. I go, why don't you come and stay with us? He goes, really? I go, yeah. You just come and stay with us. And he goes, well, we'll make a music video. I said, oh, that'd be great. Meanwhile, I had won this. I was in this CD thing. It was a benefit for No Harm Done, which helped women from domestic violence. Safe Nest, I think it was associated with Safe Nest. My song that I wrote won this $25,000 music video. So I had that one on the side. Then Zohaib's coming. I go, well, I've got these songs about these people at the hotel. I go, we'll do another song. He goes, yeah, we'll make a video. I said, okay, cool. So then I tell Leanne, I go, hey babe, we're going to have Zohaib stay with us. She goes, who? I said, Zohaib. She goes, from Pakistan? I said, yeah. She goes, are you kidding me? You don't even know. I said, yeah, I know him. She's like, you don't know him. I said, yeah, I know him. Well, now, 10 years later, he's like family to us. Because his parents was like, you're going to stay with who? Are you sure? It was so bizarre. So he comes, we shoot this video, and then it's like, wow, that was fun. I go, well, maybe we'll do one more. So this whole thing morphed into, well, shit, why don't we make it longer? Let's make it longer. So
what's the name of the movie?
It's called Lost Vegas Highway, Hiway. It's on Amazon Prime. You can find it. So
Lost Vegas Highway.
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So we ended up going to Texas, and I don't know if you're familiar with any country, but we had a guy named Hal Ketchum in the film. A lot of cool Texas people were in the film, but I had never made a film. I acted in it, kind of pieced together the script as we went along, but it all came down from that guy that that wanted to look at the $1 million homes.
What's the name of your band?
It's Jeff Mix and the Songhearts.
Jeff Mix and the Songhearts. And are you guys playing all originals? Do you play round town for like cover band shit, or
not too much cover band stuff, but
Jeff Mix and the what?
Songhearts. So you can find me on Spotify and all that stuff. So yeah, that it turned into a whole hour-long film. I had never edited a film, and we didn't have anyone to edit. We didn't have a budget. I mean, we just winged this thing, totally guerrilla. I mean, sometimes...
Chris, that's it, man. You and I are jumping in the car one day. We're going to make some political documentary or something driving across the country.
I mean, you've already got 2 cameras here. That's all you need.
Yeah. I'm about as libertarian as it gets. He's pretty liberal. We could just argue in the truck back and forth across country about all kinds of stuff.
No, I was putting over that way. We have like a full-blown film camera over there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're set.
Yeah, and so and then fast forward, Zohaib's now made like 3 features out of Pakistan, but big budgets. So like when we were shooting, I borrowed a set of RE lights, just a 4-light case from these guys called Ugug here in town. Super good guys. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to really light good. But with Zohaib was so creative with his lighting that it looks beautiful. And what we pulled off with just us, with that one box of Airy. Fast forward 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, Airy flew him to Germany to feature him. So, I mean, he went from being a film student, borrowing a set of Airy lights, to working on an Airy camera. Now it's been amazing with him.
Hey, he changed like his life.
Yeah, I mean, he would, without me. I mean, his talent would have got him somewhere.
So are you still doing a lot of that video content? Or, I noticed one of the things like on your listing sheet or your little, your white paper that you're handing out is that, you guys do a lot of targeted Facebook and Instagram. Are you doing a lot of film stuff for your listings? Do you enjoy doing that still?
I did. Then I don't have the passion for it. I used to love getting out there and filming and, making it look good. But there's people more talented than me. So I guess you just got to figure out what you're good at. Or maybe it's a tough call. I mean, like music wise, I would love to be able to mix my own stuff. But I mean, unless you're going to spend, 10 years and really get good at it, why are you going to do that when you can pay somebody, $600, $1,000 a song to get a great mix?
Yeah.
So I guess you just kind of have to pick your battles. What are you going to work on? I want to be as creative as I can in life. So that's why real estate has been so good for us, because it gave us time to go to Austin, to go shoot for 3 days and just kind of do that kind of stuff. That's the good side of real estate for us.
I get a lot of grief, and I know for certain I've lost some referral partners because I'll just put out there on Instagram that I do this podcast, and I'll put out there that I have a coaching business. I coach about 120 loan officers across the nation. And I know either consciously or subconsciously, there's a certain cross-section of realtors that are like, he's not a full-time lender, or like, he doesn't care. God forbid I don't answer the phone. It's because I must be doing something else. But it's like, no, I just don't watch TV. There's plenty of time for like passion projects. When you do podcasts in the evening, you pay somebody talented like Chris to edit it. And there's actually plenty of time to run a second business when you're just efficient with your time and you get up at 4:00 in the morning. Do you ever get this tinge of like, I don't know how much I can put out there with my artsy stuff and my music and my movies, because I don't know, does that diminish me a little bit as a professional realtor? Do you ever have that like same apprehension that I have?
No, I totally. When we left, only reason why we left Nashville, I would have preferred to stay there 5 years. They always say it's a 5-year town. Another glass bender friend of mine passed from COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that opened up a job here with a union shop, and we had a grandson come in, and it was like, you know what, let's leave, we'll go back. So I've got a neon gig that I go to at 4 a.m. still, but I mean, I do it because I love it. There's not the work that there was, even 3 years ago. The Rio Tower, all that lighting was neon. All that's down. Now it's LED. Mandalay Bay, all LED. That second tower of Mandalay Bay, the hotel tower, I did all that glass. That was 15,000 feet, 3 miles of neon. I did all of that.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But there's not the work. But I will continue to do that forever. And I just had a post about this because Rick Rubin was talking about musicians have the same deal, probably worse than what you're feeling. But it's the same thing. But Rick Rubin said, who cares if you got a day job? That gives you all the freedom to go do and make the music that you want to make. So
yeah, you don't have to play cover bands every night to make the bills.
No. So, screw them. Do the coaching. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. There's conversations that can change the course of your life or your mentality. And I remember I wrote a book on lead generation, and I was like, hey, some realtors are great. They're super pros. They run their business like a professional, like you. There's other realtors that it's either a part-time gig or they've never really ran their own business and been self-employed. I'm like, so I started leaning in, some book recommendations, and I'd send out some little coaching motivational videos or something that I saw that I thought was interesting. And I'll never forget, I called this one buyer's agent. I'd worked with this gal, Angela, for years and years, and we had a great relationship, closed a bunch of deals. I called her buyer's agent one Monday morning, just doing my, sales calls. I was like, Christy, hey, how's it going, man? Did you end up doing open houses this weekend or hanging out with the family? Blah, 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 blah. How's it going? Whatnot. And I know this was her, not me. She was projecting something that was not going well in her life. And she just unloaded on me. And she was like, Scott, I'm the realtor. I control the leads. You're the lender. I don't need any of your fucking coaching. When I have somebody refer to you, you'll either hear from me. You'll either hear from me or you won't. I don't need your advice. And I was like, whoa, hey, sorry, man. I didn't mean to step on your toes or anything. I'm just trying to put more value add information out there to the world. I totally get it. If you don't want to be on the list, I'll take you off the list. And she just unloaded on me. And this was probably 8 years ago. And ever since then, I've been really hesitant to lean in with my realtor partners on coaching or book recommendations, or I run world-class live events for loan officers. I know I could do the same for realtors, but I've got this weird block about it now because of that one person that unloaded on me. So I can't imagine what it's like to be a musician and you get a bad comment on a heart that or a song that you poured your heart and soul into. It's it's going to be devastating, right?
Well, there's a cartoon where the guy's on stage going, my songs are like my kids. And then the audience guy goes, your kids suck. So, I've been reading a lot of Matthew Ferry. He's got a book and he's addressing what you're just talking about. If you were to if a dog bites you once, then you start making up all these things why you should hate a dog.
Right.
But you have to let that go. It's just your perception of what happened to you. So I would tell you to let that one agent go because, personally, if I'm working with you and you go, hey, I've got this cool coaching tip, I think that'd be awesome. I think you just need to find more people that would think it was awesome and screw that woman.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that, man. That means a lot.
Yeah.
So I always like to end on a couple questions, and we'll have a lot more for you since you're a musician. So I always end on what are you most looking forward to going into the end of the year? Because this will probably come out a couple weeks in September, October-ish of 2024. So what are you most looking forward to personally, professionally, whatever, going into the end of the year? I always ask, what's your favorite movie and why? Because I'm a big movie junkie. Don't watch TV shows, don't watch the news anymore, but I do watch a lot of movies. But for you, we got to start with favorite musicians and why. If you were going to Guns N' Roses 86, I got to imagine you have been an avid concert goer your whole life. So, favorite performances you've seen, favorite artists of yours, people you admire.
Leanne just said she had that question come up on Facebook. If you could have any artist come back to play one more show, who would it be? I said, I don't know. And she goes, Petty. I go, yeah, you're right. And I think it's even worse because we never saw Tom Petty live. So that would have been, I'm really kicking myself because you think everyone's going to be around. But we did go see the Stones when they were just at Allegiant a couple months ago.
Nice.
Unbelievable.
I saw the Stones 20 years ago and I was like, how many more shows can they possibly have in them? And that was in 2002, so 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, they can't have that many more shows in them. I gotta get out to see them before they die. And then 22 years later, they're still kicking it.
I mean, Mick Jagger's running across the stage like he's 40.
It's crazy.
I mean,
that guy's got to be.
He's 80. Yeah.
Oh my
he's 80, and Keith Richards is 80, and they
The fact
sounded
that Keith Richards is alive
Exactly.
is mind-boggling.
yeah.
Like, it makes me not want to do anything healthy, just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Because if that dude's still alive, something has gone wrong with the human experiment.
Yeah. So I Petty and Stones for me is.
Who'd you grow up listening to the most?
I mean, I was a little headbanger kid, so I mean, I was GNR, Motley Crue. I mean, our first
A Little Quiet Riot.
Yeah. So my first concert, my first concert was Alabama, but the year after that was Motley Crue with Ozzy. So it was Bark at the Moon and Shout at the Devil. So that was 84.
Oh, what a show.
Yeah.
So was Tim Rhodes still alive then, playing guitar for them?
No, Randy Rhoads?
Randy Rhoads, sorry.
Yeah.
Randy Rhoads?
No, so it was Jakey Lee.
Jakey Lee, okay. Yeah. And most recent concert that you've seen other than the Stones that you're a big fan of? Any smaller bands that people need to check out that are like up and coming?
Well, probably another one of my all-time favorites would be a guy named Chuck Prophet out of San Francisco.
Oh, I'm familiar with that name.
Yeah. He was in another band called Green on Red. But, I mean, none of these bands were big. But if you ever get to see him live, he's a monster on guitar. But, I mean, it all comes down to songs. But we went out to it's Wimberley, Texas, which is outside of. Okay, so
outside Austin.
So we filmed a scene in our movie at a bar called the Devil's Backbone Tavern, and a woman that was in the film, who's a singer-songwriter named Robin Ludwig, her and her husband ended up buying the Backbone. So Chuck was playing the Backbone, so we went and stayed at Robin and Meat's house and got to see Chuck. But I mean, we've seen Chuck. I think I've seen Chuck Prophet more than any other artist.
All right, I'm gonna have to bring him up tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what? You mentioned Ozzy Osbourne. One of my all-time favorite albums is when Zakk Wylde left the band and he did Pride and Glory. That album, like hard Southern rock, is just like a banger from open to close. And I think they did one more album and then they disappeared and he started Snake something or Black Label Experiment or something like that.
I did see Pride and Glory. I saw.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. There's this cool venue in St. Pete called Janus Landing. So, I mean, he was cool. What Leanne hated was he kept hucking loogies straight up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she was like, what the hell was this? You know, but
I don't think these bands could be any more different, but if I could see the Beatles play, like bring them back, or if they could just do a start to finish album of Zakk Wylde and Pride and Glory, that would probably be high up there on my list of like concerts I'd like to see.
Yeah.
So favorite movie and why?
You know what? There's this movie called the Three Burials of Michelob. It's some Spanish name.
Okay.
But it had Tommy Lee Jones, I think, and Dwight Yoakam in it. This movie, it takes place like on a border town in Texas. It's gritty. I can't recommend this movie. The Three Burials, if you just search the Three Burials of, it's going to come up.
Okay.
And Dwight Yoakam was a cop, but it is written so well that you don't hate anyone at the end of it.
Is it like a cops and robbers type thing? Good guys, bad guys?
Yeah,
or?
it's kind of a good guys, bad guys. It's
What's it called, Chris?
Melquiades Estrada.
There you go.
Yeah,
in Spanish.
Okay.
All right. There we go.
The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada.
And who's the cast?
I mean, Tommy Lee's amazing. Dwight Yoakam's been in a surprising amount of movies.
He's amazing.
Wasn't he in Panic Room?
Yeah. So he was the guy he had the hood like ski mask on.
Yeah, the main villain in
Tommy
Panic Room.
Lee Jones, Barry Pepper, Julio Cesar Cedillo, Dwight Yoakam, January Jones, Melissa
January
Lowe,
Jones, there we go.
Levon Helm, Mel Rodriguez, Cecilia
Levon Helm
Suarez.
is in that?
He is Old Man with Radio.
Aren't we all?
Uncredited, yeah, exactly. That's amazing. And then, like, what are you most looking forward to in coming up in the end of the year, other than like securing every listing in Vegas because of your new strategy?
Yeah. Well, I guess some of the biggest things would be, interest rate drops is what I'm really hoping for. Granddaughter coming because I've had three boys. So we've zero girls. So, I mean, this is so exciting.
Poor girl's going to be so spoiled.
Yeah, I call my dad and I said, hey, we found out what it is. And then she puts me on speaker and I say it. And then my stepmom goes, it's a girl. I go, how do you know? She goes, because I could tell how happy you sound. So we're super excited. And we do have that album all finished, mixed, mastered. We went to outside of El Paso, about 45 minutes, right on the Rio Grande border. There's a studio called Sonic Ranch. And it's 5 different studios. 3 of them have Neve boards. And it's all inclusive. So you stay there, they feed you, and you just record. So you don't leave. Not that the only thing that's close by was a Dollar General. So that's where we went to get wine for the band. But so we went there and tracked it. And a good friend of mine named Aaron Lee Tazjan, who's fantastic artist in his own right, produced, and then my wife on bass, and then my friend Mark Stepro on drums, and he's the drummer for the Wallflowers. So it was just the 4 of us. So the album's done. I need some more deals for some money to try to push it. But the real gift was just getting it done and cutting this with Leanne. So the win's already made for me, but it would be nice to get it out.
So bonus question that's only going to be relevant to you. What's it like to be married to the same woman that you do business with, to the same woman that you do your hobby with, that you're recording albums with? Like, what is the secret sauce there? Because I don't love anybody more than my wife, and I don't want to see her 22 hours a day.
I mean, I've screwed up a lot of things in my life, but that's been one thing that has worked. I can't really explain. We just like each other. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, we fight, but then we get an hour into an argument and then we just start laughing.
Right.
Because you can't take it too serious. I mean, we're all there's 7 billion people on the planet all doing their best, whether you agree with them or not.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's the way to end the podcast. Thanks for being on. Let's have you on. Let's have you on next year when you're dominating the listing market and see if the strategy was right.
Or if I haven't been murdered by the other agents, I go, this asshole doing 2%.
We'll talk soon.